Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and welcome to Saturday's show. On today's show, very shortly, we'll be talking about the Flash movie and its test screenings, and reports saying it's the highest rated test screenings from test audiences in DCEU history. Then we'll be talking about the obsession from people in the media that want Henry Cavill to jump ship from DC to Marvel, something that absolutely triggers me. There's also an article from Screen Rant continuing the conversation we discussed yesterday with Warner Brothers' lack of a green light for the Batman 2. And in the last part of today's show, as we did yesterday, we'll be discussing my beloved Manchester United, a club all the fans are fighting for now. How can we get Sir Jim Ratcliffe to buy this club? Does he have to buy it outright to run it? We'll be comparing the Warner Media and AT&T and Discovery merger and look at that and see if a similar thing can happen at Manchester United. That's all to come on today's Saturday show here on Movies TV Mad. It is being reported that the Flash movie test scores have been through the roof, the highest test scores for any DCEU movie. So if this is the case, and full disclaimer, I've seen a test screening of the Flash movie. I have varied, balanced opinions about this movie, from the sublime to the ridiculous. I can understand why this film has record scores and people like it. Industry professionals really like what they've seen in test screenings as well. But why is that? Well, because the VFX is through the roof. It is really, really good. We get cameos from, Christopher Reeve's Superman via VFX and CGI. Linda Carter's Wonder Woman. We see Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. Jason Momoa's Aquaman. We see so many things here, and one of the most popular versions of Batman of all time, Michael Keaton, plays a significant role in this movie. And it's adapting, not faithfully, one of the best graphic novels of all time, which is Flashpoint. And Andy Muschietti and, surprisingly, Christina Hodson have done a pretty neat job in balance with this film, and that's why the scores are so high. But in the theme of balance here, why has it had so many test screenings? Because they want to know what they need to change. Because changing things in this movie is exactly what they're going to do. I think it's pretty obvious that David Zaslav doesn't like the multiverse strategy idea, finds it confusing, and I think that's one of the things test audiences have said with the Flashpoint movie, not just with that movie, but with the one test screening audiences saw for Batgirl. If he was confident in the multiverse strategy, Batgirl wouldn't be canned. Batgirl would be getting another 100 million to make it the highest of quality, so they could transfer it from HBO Max to the theatrical system. But they didn't do that. And I think that's one of the reasons that Batgirl was cancelled, because they don't believe in the multiverse strategy. So it's clear they're going to change that element. And we discussed that before, how they're going to do that. Everything you see in most of the movie probably won't be cut. But in the third act, when Barry returns to his Earth, it will be the Snyderverse. It will be the original DCEU, and Keaton won't be Batman. But there's always a reason why movies have many, many test screenings. I've said this before, I'll say it again. It's really funny to me how people think test screenings is a celebration, that it's there to enjoy. If you enjoy a test screening, that's fun. But you're there to critique a movie. You're there to help them. So if there's something you genuinely don't like, they want you to tell them. You're not there to shill. You're not going to get a pat on the back for shilling. That doesn't help them. If you hate something and you don't tell them you hate something, or don't like something, or you think something could be better, if you don't tell them, you're hurting them, you're hurting the studio, and you're hurting the character and the movie. So if you ever do go to a test screening, make sure you're absolutely transparent and honest. So it's good to hear that the test scores are through the roof. And I think, look, cameos are key here. You know, Kevin Feige created something very, very special in terms of giving people what they want in team-ups, cameos. Look, people love cameos. They like to see lots of different things from different universes unite. The first Avengers movie proved that that's what people want to see. That's the number one thing audiences ask me about these days. If I know something about a film, or if I've gone to a test screening, was this cameo there? Was that cameo there? They're not really interested in original storytelling. They're obsessed with cameos. Rightly or wrongly, that's where we are with our modern, younger audiences today. In fact, even people my age have the same focus. I think that's a shame. I think that's kind of hurt cinema, but I like a good crossover, and I like a good cameo as long as it's not just about the cameo. So even though it's positive that the Flash movie is getting these high scores, it wouldn't be having so many test screenings if they weren't thinking of changing the movie. And let's not forget Grant Gustin is also cameoing in this movie. And let's not forget Robert Pattinson's The Batman, I can confirm, and you've heard the rumour already via the press and people who have gone to see it, has a little cameo in this movie too. Does it stay? Does it go? What does the integrity of this movie stay? This is something that Ben Affleck spoke about when he was asked about his Batman. He said this was the best version of his Batfleck ever in film. And if they keep the integrity of that, people are going to love it, and he would be very proud of it. So that's very interesting as well, because he knows this studio, and he knows that Hamada and Emmerich weren't trustworthy enough to keep the integrity of maybe what he did with his Batman. He doesn't trust them. Things have changed now because Zaslav and Adby and DeLuca are in charge. So hopefully they're intelligent enough to understand what should stay in this movie and what should go. And if they have doubts about the multiverse strategy, they know there's elements of the third act of the movie that have to go. So this movie is being released next year at this moment in time, and we'll see where we go with that. But look, now Ezra Miller has come out, and sorted his shit out by apologizing, whether it's a studio incentive, his representatives. If he doesn't mean the apology, I don't care. It was important for him to front up. They've done that, so I'm not interested in those talking points about Ezra Miller anymore. That's done. Unless he does something else, I'm not interested in that. I'm excited to talk about this movie, and it's going to be interesting what they do with this movie, because it does look like the multiverse element, not in terms of Barry going to another universe or creating another universe when he saves his mother's life, but in terms of them using the Flash movie to create a multiverse strategy. I think that element is certainly dead, and we'll see what they do with it. But it's very interesting, exciting times for DC, because they could add even more cameos in this movie. Who knows? The underlining rumor is that they want to stay within the premise of the Snyderverse of the DCEU for now, maybe temporarily. So don't get overly excited, putting 2 and 2 together and getting, 66. It doesn't mean the Snyderverse will be restored, as much as I would love it to. It just means they don't like the multiverse strategy. They don't like the idea of banishing the Snyderverse somewhere else and doing a final crisis story. But maybe they'll still do that. I don't know. The truth of the matter is, the Flash movie test screening I saw may not be the movie that's released. They may change the entire third act. So I'm very excited to go and see the movie in movie theatres with you lot, review it, and see what they've changed. And we'll talk about the differences between the test screening and the theatrical version as well. And I'm excited to see how the public react to this movie. It's not a controversial movie in itself. It's a big movie because of the changes it was originally looking to make to the franchise. But David Zaslav and Adby and DeLuca could still use this film to do a brand new franchise. It's going to be very interesting, these decisions they make. I'm very interested to see who the president of DC Studios will be. It could be someone well known. It could be Kevin Feige. I still believe there's a 25% chance that Kevin Feige could be the new president of DC Studios. Yes, very unlikely, I hear you saying. It's not possible, Mick. Why would he leave the MCU? Well, should we move on to the MCU? I didn't tease that at the start of the video, but I've decided to talk about She-Hulk a little bit. The first 3 phases of the MCU were very entertaining, and it was great, and there wasn't this extremism, there wasn't this extreme left point scoring. It's really, really changed. And the question is that down to Kevin Feige or Disney themselves? Because Kevin Feige wasn't doing this in phase 1 and phase 2 and most of phase 3. It started in phase 3, didn't it? A little bit. But phase 4 has really gone hard on representation, inclusion, mem bashing and stuff like that, and basically making everything about female leads rather than the male ones. Let's talk about Mark Ruffalo's Incredible Hulk. In the first Avengers, awesome. In Avengers Age of Ultron, awesome, apart from him having this romantic link to Black Widow. I didn't like his connection with Romanoff, and I didn't like the way she could control him. I thought that was shit, but the rest of it was great. I also loved the Incredible Hulk in Thor Ragnarok. I loved the fact that the Hulk could speak, just like in some of the comics and some of the animated adventures he had when I was a kid. But Clever Hulk, they beta-mailed the Incredible Hulk. And I'll tell you why Feige has done this. It's because he doesn't believe in female leads. He doesn't. He wants to pretend that he does. But let's look at She-Hulk. She-Hulk will cameo Daredevil, Kingpin, right? That's how much he values his female lead. If she's so strong, why is Bruce Banner there? If she's so strong, why does she need Bruce Banner to help her? But let's look at Bruce Banner and the Hulk. They've destroyed that character. These were the issues that Ed Norton had when he was making the Incredible Hulk, and everyone called him a diva. Ed Norton was right. He knew what Feige was going to do to this character. He has destroyed the Hulk. The Hulk is an awesome, epic character. I think there's a graphic novel called, is it World War Hulk? There's so many different graphic novels. And this is why I think the 70s series got the Hulk in live action more right than the MCU has, for example. I really like the Incredible Hulk movie, but that's mostly to do with other people, mostly Ed Norton, the director, and other people in there more than Kevin Feige at the time. The film didn't do very well. People didn't really like it. I don't understand why, because look at what they've done to the character now. Do you prefer that? So this is what's going on, and this is why I think that Kevin Feige may decide to come and run DC Studios. And it's a difficult one for me, because obviously when we look at the first 3 phases and the success story that Feige did, and he put something amazing together with the Infinity Saga, and even as a biased DC fan, I can't criticize that. So that element makes me really excited and makes me want him to run DC Studios. But then when I see what he's done with Phase 4, I worry a great deal. But here's the thing. He's not going to be able to SJW a DC live-action universe because of one reason and one entity. David Zaslav is not going to take that shit. By cancelling Batgirl, it proves that David Zaslav isn't an SJW and he's not scared of cancelling a movie with a female lead. Many companies would not have done that. Most companies would not have done that. So it proves he's about the almighty buck and making DC, at its core, the best thing it can. Now, I believe in representation, right? I do. But it can't be, you can't be so focused on inclusion and representation that you forget the entertainment value. So I do feel that there's a 25% chance that Kevin Feige could run DC Studios. I do feel he's come to the end of the road with the MCU. It's losing money. He's making enemies over there. There's some people that will not be happy if he was to take over DC Studios. And I can understand why, and I'd be mixed on it. Considering Zaslav said they want to create a similar model to the MCU with DC Studios and DC live action, could that be a hint that it is Kevin Feige that's coming over. Because if you're going to copy and pattern the MCU, the best person to do it is the person who created that blueprint. Now, obviously, it's a very successful blueprint, but we've also got a lot of issues here because the superhero kind of trend is dying out slightly. So it could be that although I think it's a good idea to have a DC Studios and a DC live action franchise, and they should continue the MCU, there's still money in it, I think that cinema and Hollywood are going to have to start making varied content because people are starting to grow really tired. It's something that James Gunn touched on during the promotional and marketing work of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. He said a lot of comic book movies were very mediocre. And I really understand what he's saying. And whatever you say about The Suicide Squad, it's not a mediocre movie. It's a very high core, high concept movie. And it really works. And it's hugely entertaining. There's nothing that Gunn makes that isn't entertaining. So Gunn made a very good point, and he was clearly pointing the finger at the MCU. Because say what you like about the DCEU, there's very few mediocre movies in it. Man of Steel, high concept. Same with BVS. The Suicide Squad, the first movie, is solid. It's entertaining. It continues from the last two movies. It works for me. Wonder Woman is one of the greatest CBMs ever made. Zack Snyder's Justice League, what a movie. Aquaman, what a movie. Shazam is solid. And then you go to the mediocrity once Hamada takes over with Birds of Prey and Wonder Woman 84. So basically the DCEU has only got two bland movies, basically. So that's a good record. Forget about box office and the problems the franchise has had behind the scenes. And so clearly Gunn was talking about the MCU. He's getting out of Dodge. So it will be highly interesting to see who is the president of DC Studios, and don't discount Kevin Feige. We've spoken about Greg Berlanti before. Could they run a DC Studios together? That will be very, very interesting because I do like what Berlanti and his people did with Arrowverse at the beginning. Arrow was a great show for 2 seasons. Flash was very comic book accurate for 2 seasons. So he has done some very good things there. I mean, Superman and Lois was riding the crest of the wave. Now I want to talk about Superman and Lois because it was riding the crest of the wave. I was very supportive of it. A really great, clever, intelligent adaptation of the Superman character. But Jordan Eslas's departure sits very uncomfortably with me. I don't believe he's quit because of mental health. I believe he was pushed out. Not one of these cast members have supported his decision publicly. No one's come out. No one's supporting him. The young lad who plays his brother, Jordan, has unfollowed him from Instagram, according to people. I don't know if that's true, but if that's true, this is not very good behaviour. Now, for all I know, Jordan Eslas may be a diva. He may have been the problem. He could be another Shannon Doherty. But he could be an innocent victim here. I don't know the facts, but I'm going to look into them because I smell a rat. How can I continue to watch Superman and Lois when I know an actor won't be in it? One of the main characters did a really good job. It's really funny the Superman and Lois cast were always cuddling each other and calling themselves a family. This isn't the way families behave, actually. Maybe, looking at my family sometimes, maybe it is the way families behave. But I don't like it. You know, you're not supporting this kid. Why? I mean, they're not even pretending to support this guy. Now, apparently, he didn't turn up to start shooting season 3. It looks like he gave them very, very little notice. But this guy didn't just wake up one day and decide, I'm not coming into work. So there's a reason. And if it's mental health, why aren't his castmates and his producers and his crew supporting him publicly on social media? They're not. I smell a big fat fucking rat, everyone, And I'm going to get to the bottom of this like I got to the bottom of the delays and the schedule changes in the DCEU earlier this year. This is why you're watching me. You need to know these things. I need to know these things. And I smell another Clayne Crawford and Ruby Rose situation here. And I will keep you apprised of that situation. I found this article from Fandom Wire from 3 days ago, and I wanted to make a point about it. Henry Cavill jumping ship would be an ultimate fuck you to DC, as reports pouring claiming Cavill is playing Marvel's Superman in Loki Season 2. Who's Marvel's Superman? Season 2. DC fans want WB Studios to feel the pain. Right. I don't. Right, listen. Let me correct this person who wrote this headline. Henry Cavill jumping ship from DC to Marvel isn't a fuck you to DC, it's a fuck you to DC fans. And if this happened, I would be really effing angry. I would not be happy about this. Jesus Christ, I don't like flicking in Christian Bale and Russell Crowe being in Thor Love and Thunder. And I understand that they're actors. Being an actor myself, I understand they'll go where the work is. There's no loyalty, right? And I get that. But this would really piss me off. And I think Henry's had offers from Feige, obviously, and he's turned them down. But he has said in interviews he wouldn't mind doing it, but obviously it will be the end of him playing Superman. This wouldn't be a fuck you to DC and Warner Brothers. It'll be a fuck you to us. It will break all of our hearts. It's something I don't want to see. And this is by Vizag Acharya. Interesting name. I don't think I got it right. Anyway. It has been a long time since Henry Cavill was spotted donning the blue suit of Superman. Mixed reports have indicated that the future of Henry Cavill as Superman in the DCEU is uncertain. No shit, Sherlock. Now, in an ultimate bold move, rumours of Henry Cavill switching sides by joining Marvel are making rounds on internet, which would be a devastating blow to the current already unstable DC. Let's be absolutely clear. These bullshit rumours have been coming out for years and years. This is nothing new. Who's this? Hyperion is Marvel's answer to DC's Superman, much like the similarities the two comics share. The two characters are no exception, following a similar storyline to that of Superman. The superhuman was sent on Earth as a baby from a dying race of Eternals, getting adopted by a human named Father. He raised the baby under the name of Marcus Milton. He taught him the societal roles and ethics which later led to the child becoming a superhero named Hyperion. What a shit name. So you're telling me Henry will be happy to play a downgraded version of Superman over at Marvel? Here's the thing. He wouldn't be playing Superman, right? It sounds like a rip-off of Superman. This would be embarrassing for Henry. Recent rumours have been circling around the internet about a potential casting of Henry Cavill as Hyperion. In the upcoming Marvel project, fans took to Twitter to express the devastation that this would cause to an already unstable DC. Well, it is rumoured that Henry Cavill will be in Disney Plus Loki Season 2 as Hyperion, but Hyperion is a Marvel superhero, so if that's true, then that means he left WB and is with Marvel now. These are some of the reactions from Twitter. Well, Sutu, Henry Cavill, Hyperion, rumour is going to trigger people if it turns out to be real. So, I don't think it's real, I think it's bullshit. They've gone, look, there's a Marvel character that's just like Superman. Let's spread the rumour about Henry playing that character. So, it's utter bullshit. So, yeah, there's a lot more reactions here. So, dear Lord, please let this be true. No, mate, let this not be true. If you're going to get Henry Cavill in the Marvel Universe, please don't do it in fucking Loki Season 2. So, interesting. So, that's basically the article. I mean, Fandom Wire doesn't really set up its articles really well. It's jumping about. But anyway, we got there in the end. So, is this true? Is Henry Cavill joining the MCU? Look, anything's possible. I'm not going to say it will never happen, but I don't believe these rumours, and neither should you. He's desperate to play Superman again. The fans are desperate for him to play Superman again. It's very complicated because Henry wants an element of creative control, and no studio wants to give actors, you know, creative control, small small portions of creative control or huge portions of creative control. They may have to bend the knee a little bit and work with Henry. We'll see what happens. My theory is that discussions will be successful with David Zaslav because David Zaslav is a very smart man, and David Zaslav always gets what he wants. In my research of him at Discovery, always does the right thing for studio and content, and he'll do it now. I mean, the CW is not owned by WB and Paramount or CBS or whoever, right? He sold it. As soon as he got here, he sold the CW. The CW is done. It'll be done with DC and everything. That's gone. Batgirl has been shelved. This guy is ruthless. So, if he wants Henry Cavill to be Superman again, which I'm sure he does, because that's what we all want, and it's good for box office, so David will want this. If he wants that to happen, he can make that happen. So, yeah, don't listen to any shitty rumours about Henry going over to Marvel. At this moment in time, I don't think it will happen, but who knows what the future holds. So, yesterday we were talking about the Batman sequel seemingly not being greenlit yet. So, a journalist who writes for Screen Rant, Adrienne Tyler, it sounds like Adrienne, so that sounds female. So let's see what you had to say, Adrienne. Seriously, DC, where's the Batman 2 announcement? Right, let's cover this. There has actually been an announcement at CinemaCon that the Batman sequel is definitely happening, and I think the same kind of announcement happened at Warner Brothers Discovery up front, if I can remember rightly. So there has been an announcement. Now, what's interesting to me, with all these rumours coming out that it hasn't been greenlit, no one from Warner Brothers Discovery has come out to say, no, we've already greenlit this. This has been announced. What are you talking about? And because of their silence over this, this does really concern me about the future of this sequel and this franchise. A sequel to the Batman is expected to happen, yet Warner and DC haven't made an official announcement. I've just told you they did many months ago. So what's happening with the Batman 2? Matt Reeves' The Batman was a critical and commercial success, and it has been one of DC's most successful movies in recent years, which is why it comes as a surprise that the Batman 2 hasn't been officially announced yet. The DC Extended Universe hasn't been the successful superhero-connected universe Warner Brothers expected, and after a couple of failures and behind-the-scenes controversies, the studio has had to change its plans for the DCEU a couple of times. Among those changes was bringing another version of Batman outside the DCEU. For me, bringing in a Batman outside of that universe is somewhat problematic, and I think it's somewhat problematic to David Zaslav as well. The DCEU, which allowed a darker and more complex story that was hit with the audience. What's interesting is that Ben Affleck's Batman was complex and dark and was within the DCEU. And people love Ben Affleck's Batman, even if they don't like Snyder, what he did with that Batman. They like the interpretation that Ben Affleck has given us on Bruce Wayne and Batman, as do I. Simply titled The Batman, which was Ben Affleck's original Batman film. That's why Snyderverse fans like you and me are pretty upset. And directed by Matt Reeves, the movie introduced Robert Pattinson as a young Bruce Wayne in his second year of fighting crime in Gotham City. The Batman also explored the Caped Crusaders detective side as he worked alongside Lieutenant James Gordon, Jeffrey Wright, and the Gotham City Police Department to catch the Riddler, Paul Dano, while also uncovering some of Gotham's darkest secrets through the Penguin, Colin Farrell, and Carmine Falcone, John Turturro. With the help of Selena Kyle, Zoe Kravitz, the Batman was praised for the performances of the main cast, its cinematography, action sequences, which we didn't have many of, let's not forget, story and Reeves' direction, and it's currently among the top 5 highest grossing movies of 2022. Listen, the box office was really good. We'd call it solid, wouldn't we? And while the ending left the door open for a sequel, the future of the Batman is unclear. And that's not what I mean. You know, it was Variety's article last week that kind of confused things. And Warner Brothers didn't come out to dispel this myth. So that's really interesting. Although the Batman 2 was announced to be happening back in April during Warner Brothers CinemaCon panel, the studio has gone through big changes with a massive merger that made way for Warner Brothers Discovery and led to a big shake-up in the DCEU and other DC universes. Now, it's important to understand, at CinemaCon when the Batman 2 was announced, that was with Matt Reeves and Toby Emmerich. Toby Emmerich is no longer the chairman of Warner Brothers Pictures Group. The future now is uncertain, as according to some reports, it's currently listed as in development. Now that is scary, because there's another phrase you should listen to: in development hell. These two phrases go together, and hasn't been given an official green light, making viewers question if Pattinson's Batman will return in the near future or not. At the end of the Batman, the Riddler was incarcerated at Arkham State Hospital, where he befriended none other than the Joker, Barry Keoghan. Gotham was flooded and severely damaged. Selina left as she deemed the city beyond saving, and Batman aided recovery efforts while vowing to inspire hope in the city. All this, especially the Riddler's meeting with the Joker, leaves the door open for a sequel, which became all the more likely after the Batman was a huge box office hit. In addition to that, the Batman is intended to launch a Batman shared universe still separate from the DCEU. And as I say, this is rather problematic. Now, you could unite this universe with the DCEU using Flashpoint, but how would Matt Reeves feel about that? That's the issue here. But don't forget, I mentioned earlier on today's show that Robert Pattinson's The Batman does cameo for a few seconds in the Flash movie. With the spin-off TV series The Penguin and at least 2 sequels planned, and the aforementioned CinemaCon panel, Pattinson and Reeves were announced to be returning for The Batman 2. So it's been announced. While the recent updates on The Batman 2 are discouraging, as it all points to the movie being years away. Right, listen, it doesn't matter if it gets green-lit or not. The movie was always years away, right? There's no shooting, he's barely written a script, I'm sure he's got a skeleton of a narrative and a plot. So this film was always years away. Where are we, 2022? I think we're going to have to wait a couple of years to see this movie, at the very least. It doesn't exactly come as a surprise due to all the changes Warner Brothers has been going through, especially in its DC Comics branch. With the cancellation of Batgirl and the Wonder Twins and other important changes, the studio is rethinking its approach to its DC branch. And unfortunately, that means that big projects like Batman 2 and Wonder Woman 3 are suffering the consequences. I could absolutely celebrate and punch the air with Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman 3 never happening. I believe that's the case. But the Batman 2 not happening, I'd be very surprised. However, this doesn't mean that the Batman 2 won't happen, and if the DC fandom event happens this year, again unlikely, there's hope for the Batman sequel to be officially announced, though it's likely that it will take a while to enter production. More so as the Penguin is intended to be released before the Batman 2, and the series doesn't have a release date yet. So what's going on with the Batman? We spoke about this yesterday, but I want to go into it a little deeper. It's clear that Zaslav is looking at the Batman universe and thinking, could this be our brand new DC universe, or should we bring Pattinson and Reeves into the extended DCEU or a brand new DCEU? There's lots of different things they could do, but I think the 2 options is taking and focusing the new universe in Reeves' universe, or Reeves' universe joining the DCEU. Something that Matt Reeves could be opposed to. But if he was so opposed to it, why didn't he make a fuss about his Batman cameoing in the Flash movie? So I don't think this movie is at risk. It was always years away from being viewed in movie theatres, theatrically anyway. But I do feel there is a decision to be made. I don't think Zaslav wants this to be a self-contained franchise and universe. In the next few months and weeks, we may hear an announcement that the Batman universe is part of the DCEU. We're just going to have to wait and see. So now, welcome to the Manchester United section of this show. So we all know Sir Jim Ratcliffe wants to buy Manchester United in its entirety. Now, we've heard rumours that the Glazers want to sell a minority stake. How would that work? Well, let's look at the merger between AT&T's Warner Media and Discovery. So what happened there was that AT&T merged Warner Media with Discovery. Now, let me explain to you something. The AT&T merger still has AT&T as majority shareholders of the Discovery and Warner Media merger. The company is now Warner Brothers Discovery. So it's interesting that AT&T, right, who owned Warner Brothers in its entirety and still have a majority stake of Warner Brothers Discovery, have merged, right? But they called it Warner Brothers Discovery, even though they have a majority stake in the company. That's AT&T. And that the Discovery CEO became the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, again, even though AT&T has the majority ownership of Warner Brothers Discovery. Why is that? Because the whole point of that merger was John Stankey, the CEO of AT&T, conceded that they made a mess of running Warner Brothers and they needed help. So that's why they went to this troubleshooter, David Zaslav, to make the right decisions. A similar thing could be happening with Manchester United. Think about this. Sir Jim Ratcliffe buys a minority stake of Manchester United. So Manchester United merges between the Glazer ownership and Sir Jim Ratcliffe's, let's say, 25% or whatever. But the Glazers concede that they can't afford to run Manchester United on their own and they don't know how to do it. They admit they've made too many mistakes in private with talks with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, which I assume have happened. So what they say is, Sir Jim, we want you to be the CEO of Manchester United and appoint the right people to run the club, right? We will be silent partners and take some profits. Well, Sir Jim, let's just assume, Sir Jim says, I would rather own this club outright, but if that's the only option, I'll take it. I'll run this club. I like this idea. But Mr. Glazer and all the other 5 or 6 siblings, or however many of them there are, too many Glazers around in this world for my liking. Anyway, he says, I will agree to this because I like it, because I want to be the full owner of Manchester United, but if this is all I can do for now, fair enough, and I can run the club and I can get my people to run the club because I'm a competent businessman with experience in sport ownership. But there's one thing that will break this deal. I want the debt that this club owes because of the loan you got to buy the club gone. You must pay off this loan in its entirety, because I don't believe Sir Jim Ratcliffe would agree to something like this unless they pay off that debt. Now, Sir Jim may help them financially. So I think, and I know you're all shouting at me right now, but I think this is a better than nothing. I maybe spoke about this yesterday or the day before as well. I just wanted to explain to you properly how that could work. And I would be happy with this for the time being, as long as there's an agreement in a couple of years or whenever for Sir Jim to own the club. They're silent partners. They have nothing to do with it. The debt gets paid off, and then Sir Jim's running the club, right? That will be contracted and official. They couldn't go back on that. I would accept that. Now, we all know, ideally, we want Sir Jim, and only Sir Jim, to own this club. We don't want investment funds. We don't want this and that. Now, yesterday, a journalist and financial experts were saying that financial companies would advise the Glazers to do a Barcelona and sell off portions of the club's television rights. We must not allow this to happen. Manchester United isn't a birthday cake you cut in pieces and auction off. No way. We don't want them selling bits and pieces of the club. This will be a beginning of bankruptcy for Manchester United, potential relegation, bankruptcy. This is not what we want. Anyway, we've all been shocked in the past couple of days that Manchester United has suddenly bought this world-class elite 30-year-old central defensive midfielder. Now, I'm happy about this acquisition. It doesn't change my mindset. I still want the Glazers out. I still support what's going to happen on Monday. Absolutely. The greatest, here we go, as everyone's been saying, is hearing the Glazers are out and Sir Jim Ratcliffe is the 100% majority owner of Manchester United PLC. And so, where did the money come from? They stumped up 60 million for this world-class central midfield defence. Let's start again. They paid 60 million for this central defensive midfielder. But where did that money come from? They were taking their time. They were looking at cheaper options. So why did they decide, right? And they're so thick, right? They're so thick because after they announced they bought this player, they then were putting out through the press that, you know, Frankie de Jong is very unlikely. And they were, you know, the guy from Real Madrid was always their main target. They're so thick because this transfer was beating down the trends of Glazer out. They were doing it. I don't like they were doing it, but this is how fickle fans can be. But then, as soon as they said that the Jong situation probably won't happen, and this guy from Real Madrid was our main target, all of a sudden the Glazer out trend went back up. Because no one in control of that club has any acumen. Their PR is shit, their PR is transparent, and we know that this guy from Madrid wasn't their main target. They have wasted the whole fucking summer on De Jong, a player who made it clear, didn't want to come to Manchester United, didn't want to be at a club that's not in the Champions League, who blatantly said in an interview he loves Barcelona, he loves the place, he loves the club, and doesn't want to go anywhere. It wouldn't surprise me if he signs an extension to his Barcelona contract and they make some agreement over this 17 million that the club own them. Could it be that Frankie de Jong and Barcelona were just using Manchester United? Of course they fucking were, and it's not good. Frankie de Jong was never coming to our club, and that element isn't really the Glazers' fault. You know, Eric, our manager, insisted on this transfer, and really it's something that he forced the club to agree upon when they were interviewing him for the job. So the club had no choice. So now we're looking at the Antony situation, which yesterday when I spoke to you looked like it wasn't going to happen. Now this is interesting. Antony didn't train yesterday. He's not happy that Ajax rejected the 80 million offer. So it'll be interesting what happens there. But we're also going for another forward from another club. I don't know what club it is and I don't know his name. Will we get two forwards or are we just looking to get the one? It looks like actually that we could have a brand new team by the end of this transfer window. As ridiculous as it sounds, this was Ralph Ragnick's plan all along. This is what he wanted to do, bring in 10 players. And it's interesting, all of a sudden, Manchester United are going full speed ahead on transfer, elite transfer after transfer. So what has changed? Now, many people will tell you it's because they're scared, the Glazers, that they're going to lose the club. And that's why they're doing this. They're trying to change the narrative. You know, they're putting out there that they're looking for investment to improve the stadium. We know that's bullshit. I don't believe they bought this Real Madrid player and they're going to buy like another 5 players probably. Who knows what's possible in the next week and a half. I don't think they're doing it to twist the narrative. They know that their time's up. No, I don't believe that was Glazer money that bought the Real Madrid player. No, I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe is already investing his own personal money in Manchester United. And I think that's how we were able to get it. So, to get that player. So, it looks to me that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is already involved in Manchester United. So, and it looks like we're not going to hear this for a time. But that doesn't mean, whether I'm right or wrong, that doesn't mean we stop hashtagging Glazers out and we don't support the demonstrations on Monday night before the Liverpool game and maybe even after the Liverpool game. We have to keep on fighting. But it looks like Sir Jim Ratcliffe has already got some financial involvement. This is very good news because it's very suspicious all of a sudden that the Glazers have 60 million to spend. But it's not just that 60 million. We're being linked with a lot of players. I mean, I'm being told we're going to sign another 3 players. That's what I'm reading on Twitter. But I think it could be beyond that. I mean, how many we signed now? 4? Right, let's say we signed 4. That would be 7 players. So that's 4 players shy of a brand new team. But it could be beyond that. I even think they're looking for a keeper now to replace David De Gea. Now, I would be in favour of this. I love David, and I'm not here to shit-talk David. But I think it's time. There's also rumours now that maybe Harry Maguire may be sold to Chelsea. I can't believe that Chelsea would want Harry Maguire. Let's see what happens there. Apparently Scott McTominay could be going out on loan as well. Again, these are not from official channels. These could be bullshitters. So we've got to be careful here. But potentially, by the end of the transfer window, we could be playing a brand new team. I think what happened is in the opening 2 games and in pre-season, the manager quite rightly gave these players a chance. I don't know why you would do that. New manager though, he decided to do that. He gave them a chance and they blew it. And now a lot of them in the first team are going to be replaced. Obviously we need a squad. We can't sell all these losers. So a very interesting situation. But yeah, mark my words, I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe has bought the player that's just coming from Real Madrid, and I think this is only the beginning. So yes, I would support Sir Jim Ratcliffe being the CEO and merging with the Glazers with Manchester United and having a minority stake if that's all that's on offer, as long as the Glazers have no control of what happens at the club anymore. I explained to you the AT&T situation and Discovery situation. Even though AT&T have a majority stake over Warner Brothers, it's Discovery now who's got their name all over the company and are actually running the studio. So it can work. It is possible. We'll see what happens. Ultimately, we want Sir Jim to have this club in its entirety. We must keep on fighting. And one more thing before I end today's video. When you're hashtagging on Twitter or anywhere else, Glazer out, don't merely hashtag Glazer out. I am experienced at this when we were fighting to release the Snyder Cut Justice League movie. It doesn't go on the trends if you just hashtag Glazers out. What you need to do is write a paragraph of something that makes sense. Don't talk shit. And then hashtag Glazer out, Glazer sell now, or whatever hashtags you're going to use. Use all of them if you want, but normally it's best just to use the one hashtag if you want to get it trending. And that's my advice to you. We will get the Glazers out of this club if we're not complacent. Complacency isn't an option. I welcome transfers. I welcome a brand new team. I'm excited about it, but I also welcome the day we can hear, here we go. The Glazers no longer own Manchester United. This has been Movies TV Mad with my huge exclusive Saturday show. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I will see you again on Sunday's show. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. See you tomorrow.